They were the elite, the special forces of medieval Japan ruled by an ancient code. The way of the samurai is death. They have no other skill to sell except their ability to kill people. They are obsessed with death. At the heart of their world is the deadliest blade ever made. When you pick up a Japanese sword, actually feels it's almost alive. Their mission: protect the honor of their clan. There is no alternative. Absolutely impossible not to take revenge. Absolutely impossible. The 47 Rōnin were doing exactly what they had to do. This is the true story of the 47 Rōnin, an epic tale of revenge in ancient Japan, the last and the greatest of the samurai black ops. It's 1703. The city of Edo in Japan is a teeming metropolis. It's the capital of a major Eastern power and the headquarters of a military dictatorship. In one of its smarter suburbs, a top government official has been enjoying a party for the cream of Edo society. Lord Kira Yashinaka has served the Shogun, Japan's absolute ruler, all his life. He's an influential bureaucrat, and he's cleverly ensured that he and his family enjoy the protection of his Master King is an older man. He is a Hatamoto, a high-ranking knight. We would say he's married well, and his daughter has married extremely well, and he's well connected. He lives by the rules of conformity, and has made his name with the court's philosophy of obedience and fitting in. If you know your place, and you perform in the place you are supposed to perform, the world will be a harmonious place. Everything will work. Everyone should be linked in this very powerful, strong hierarchy. Everyone must do what their music told. But to get to the top, he's made many formidable enemies. One group has been worrying him for some time, but tonight Kei is letting himself relax a little. He's had some encouraging intelligence. The group seems to have music disbanded. It turns out to be a fatal mistake, because what he doesn't know is that 47 samurai commandos are closing in on his mansion, and they have one objective: to find and kill him in the utmost secrecy. A band of outlaws has resurrected a near-forgotten way of war. Now they hell-bent on wreaking terrible revenge. When they turned up in Edo, it was a massive shock, and they were using all the weapons: sword, spear, bow, everything, and they knew how to use them. And so far Lord Kira and his household are completely unaware of the danger there, and they are about to come face to face with a force who will become one of Japan's greatest legends, the 47 Rōnin. Music. Just a few years earlier, the possibility of a violent attack on a senior politician in Japan's ancient court would have been unthinkable. The court life of Edo in 1701 is extremely refined. Politeness and correct behavior is everything. It might be a military dictatorship, but this is no place for the straightforward soldier type. It's a world that's the ultimate in perfect manners, artistic beauty, and highly polished courtly etiquette. Everything is so rigidly defined. The wrong shoelaces will get you into trouble. Everyone titters behind their hands because you're wearing green on a Sunday. There's all these kind of rules that no one bothers to explain. Into this delicate world comes a high-born prince with a serious attitude problem, as the noble Asano Naganori is obliged by law to spend 6 months a year at the court of the Shogun. To show his loyalty, he has to fit and keep his emotions under control and play the game. The trouble is he's just not cut out for the job. You have these very intricate rituals going on, and Kira is there explained to people: you need to move that to there, then you must wait, you must nod, you must bow, you must walk backwards, no, not now. Then everything is incredibly delicate and intricate. One wrong move, everyone's going to laugh. Music. Aso's country seat is far, far away from the refined airs of Edo. He's a man of the countryside and the highlands, and his people are not city types. Above all, he's from a special class in Japan, one that defines the nation's military pride and tradition more than any other. Ano is a samurai. Samurai were essentially a hereditary warrior class that was best known for ruling Japan for about 600 or 700 years, until they were eliminated in the wake of modernization of the late 19th century. They're identified by hairstyles. They're carrying 2 swords, so their dress definitely sets them apart. Fantasy myths, ancient beginnings. Elevate your historical exploration to unparalleled heights with a History Hit subscription. Don't miss out on our latest releases, where classicist Neil Haynes travels to Corfu to unravel the story of the Gorgon Medusa, one of the Most iconic yet misconstrued figures of Greek mythology join Jasmine Elma as she dives into something that people have been obsessed with throughout history. Dragons, where did they come from? What exactly is a dragon? Finally, Dan Snow explores the ancient history of the Isles of Scilly and discovers burial grounds built thousands of years ago. Discover hundreds of hours of award-winning documentaries and podcasts with history. Sign up for a special offer via the link in the description. By the time Asano arrives at court, Japan has been at peace for 100 years. It's been a long time since anyone saw real conflict, but the samurai are still special, and everyone at the Edo court is all too aware of their fierce military traditions. Asano included the way of the samurai is death, and that was the way to face battle, to say that you've got no ties to this world, you're just going in to kill people. They have no other skill to sell except their ability to kill people, and so that becomes like a death cult to them. They are obsessed with death above all. The samurai are fearless. The height of excellence for any warrior is bravery, and the samurai take it to extremes. Being a samurai is about mastering your body, your emotions, your skills, and then perfection them to the point that it is that full mastery that determines your ability to perform in battle. But in Japan of 1700, a samurai like Ano have a problem. They are an elite class of expert soldiers in a country that has abolished music, war. There is quite simply nothing for people like Ano to music do. The shogun had issued a decree saying, there will be no more wars. Stop spending money on castles when there's no fighting to be done. And in fact, in 1703, it's exactly 100 years after the last real battle of the samurai. Everyone's sitting around. It's the great-grandchildren of the original samurai victors, and they're arguing about how a samurai should behave, and nobody really knows. The samurai or bushi of the 18th century may never have seen actual warfare, but they still have all the pride you'd expect from a group backed by a 1,000-year-old military tradition. Music, and in Aso's country estate, the way of the samurai or bushi meant perfecting your horsemanship and keeping your fighting skills up. The corps in the shogun's palace, they were all samurai gashi. They'd kept their fighting skills alive in the 100 years of peace, but they weren't what the country samurai were. They were so much stronger than the ones that had been weakened by years of court life. The Edo court is a world away from Aso's country estate, and he simply doesn't fit in there. But it's not because he's a country gentleman. He's also got a wild streak. Asano is a problem. Asano is a problem child, and there's a kind of shogun or report, and it didn't say anything negative about Asano, but it did say he was fond of drinking, and it did say he liked the ladies, and it kind of implied that he was a bit of a weasel and not real kind of high rank material. The shogun requires Ano to carry out certain official duties, but the prince doesn't have much of an idea of the correct courtly procedures. So the shogun appoints the bureaucrat Lord Kira to show him how to behave properly. At court, Kira is the ultimate insider, and Asano is a complete outsider. It's a disaster waiting to happen. Kira doesn't have any real power. The only power he can exercise is being sned with people, and luckily for him there's plenty of opportunity because he's in charge of explaining to these country bumpkins who come out of nowhere how they're supposed to act in the shogun's palace, and Kira makes a point of showing his pupil just how much he has to learn. He rubs Asen's pride in the dirt, and delights in showing him up. During long tedious lessons on correct behavior, two personalities are immediately on a collision course that will have devastating consequences. Something do something. Before long, Kira's insulting attitude towards his pupil pushes Ano to the limits of his endurance. He was really treated as a country bumpkin, and in the end he was so insulted that he just couldn't take any more. He just drew his sword and slashed Era. Of course, that was absolutely forbidden. It would be like drawing your gun in Buckingham Palace. You just don't. Aso's attack on Lord Kira is a shocking event, and the whole of Edo society is stunned. No one has ever done anything like it before in the shogun's palace. It would have been bad enough if he'd just drawn his sword, but to actually wound a minister of the government was unforgivable. Really, Asano has crossed the line. It doesn't take the shogun long to decide what to do with this troublesome young prince. The only thing really that they could do as a punishment was to order Asano to commit music. Suicide. The decision from the shogun is unequivocal. Asano has to die, preferably as soon as possible. As a samurai, he's allowed a unique form of music execution. The honorable way for Asano to accept his fate is to die by his own hand, but it has to be done in a very specific way laid down by law and tradition. It requires exceptional bravery to carry out. It's called seppuku. Seppuku means cutting the belly, and it is an incredibly painful way to die. It is, as far as a samurai could work out, the most painful way to die. It'll take you 2 or 3 days to slowly bleed to death. You'll be in agony, and that's why they did it, because anyone can step themselves in the throat. Anyone can jump off a cliff. That's what the civilians would do, but a samurai has to take the boldest option. Applause. Seppuku originated in the heat of samurai warfare. Cutting your own throat or disemboweling yourself was a way of showing that you were not afraid of a painful death. It was the ultimate defiance. If you knew you were being defeated while battle is raging around them, the castle is on fire. If they were being defeated, they would simply accept their fate, take out a knife, and they would open up their bellies. This would let them bleed out and die, but it was done by their own hand. This was saying to the enemy, I am still a warrior, you will never take me, I have my honor. Asano may be dead, but the consequences reverberate far and music wide. His country seat is at Ako 400 miles away. It's a grand castle and substantial estate with hundreds of loyal samurai who have served Aso's family for generations. Music, as the terrible news of Asano's crime, disgrace, and death is read out, the truth starts to sink, and they knew what was going to happen, that the castle would be taken, and then the lands taken. They would have no work, they'd have no leader, so their lives would be destroyed. Nearly 400 samurai formerly under Aso's command now have nowhere to go. They've lost their jobs and face a dramatic drop in status. The term for a leaderless samurai is a Rōnin, or a drifter. If you're a samurai and you lose your job, there's no lower exchange, no one's hiring, no one wants a samurai from a failed domain. You become cast adrift. You're flam and jetsam, you are Rōnin, you are a wave man. You probably only had one cable skill, which was the ability to beat people up and kill people. Losing your master is about the worst possible thing that can happen to a samurai, and many never recover from the catastrophic loss of music status. They would really become itinerant mercenary soldiers, so they were looked on as troublemakers. The Rōnin in Edo, which is Tokyo now, caused a lot of trouble. You know, they fighting and brawling and probably drinking. Asano may have left no he's, but there are people who are loyal to him, and one in particular is an important family servant called Oishi Yoshio. He's a faithful guardian who's known as Sano since childhood. Was probably responsible for the education of Ano. Asano is in modern Paran's child of a broken home. His father dies when he's 8 or 9 years old. He's raised by the samurai. When a soner misbehaves, when he causes this trouble, I'm sure Oisi thinks this is my fault. I have to deal with this in some way. With nowhere to turn, the Rōnin make Oishi their leader. They're cornered and they want action. They want Oishi to come up with a plan, as well as losing their jobs. They're outraged because they think the execution was unfair. In particular, they're angry that Kira has not been around. Arrested. In their eyes, Aso's death has all the hallmarks of an illegal killing. It's as if their master has been murdered, and for a samurai that means only one thing: a samurai who does not take revenge is not a true samurai. He would be laughed upon. So what happens is, if a member of your family, usually a higher ranking member, is killed, it is your duty, if not the law, that you have to go and kill his murderer. So sometimes samurai could not even inherit their lands unless they avenged the death of their father. This could lead to years tracking down the murderer until you killed him, and when you did, you'd bring the head home in proof that you had committed revenge. The Rōnin now demand a death or glory revenge attack immediately, even if it's suicidally dangerous. But Oishi knows that that is exactly what Kira and the Shogun are expecting, so he counsels caution. He wants the Rōnin to put their faith in the Shogun's justice. Oishi is actually one of the pacifists. He's a dove, he says, well, we better do what we're told. There's a bunch of other samurai from us say, no, let's siege the castle, let's start a siege, let's start a fight, let's attack Kira right now. Oishi is the One who goes, no, we must obey the shogun, we must do what's right, although outwardly calm Oishi is just as outraged as the Rōnin, but he wants justice more than revenge. He hopes Kira will be punished, that at least would mean some kind of fairness. And then comes the news Oishi had not been expecting. Kira is to be completely exonerated. It's only when Kira gets away with it, and when it's clear that there's no hope for them, that this vendetta officially begins. Their fates are now sealed, and for Oishi there can be only one course of action. There was only one thing they could do. Absolutely impossible not to take revenge. Absolutely impossible. Oishi wants revenge, but he knows the full frontal assault favored by the young Rōnin will be no more than a gesture. He wants Kira dead, and his vision depends on organization and stealth. If it works, it will be a proper samurai revenge, but it will also be an awesomely difficult task. Kira always travels with a large force of bodyguards. The only way of hitting him will be at home, but that is heavily defended, and it's in a high-security district surrounded by government buildings. Not just that, the attack will have to be coordinated from their base 400 mil music away. It's already starting to look like an impossible job. To make matters worse, Kira's agents track Oishi's every move, while Kira anxiously waits to see what he and his Rōnin will do next. Will they launch a symbolic attack, or accept their downfall and live out their days as despised Rōnin? Oishi decides to play a long game and wait, and while he waits, he's going to act out an elaborate music deception. His plan was to show the government that they weren't going to take revenge, which is very difficult because at that time Japan was a police state. The shogun's government had spies everywhere. There were secret police everywhere. And whatever the Yoran did would have been reported immediately back to the shogun. They would have known, and they would have been arrested immediately. See to throw Kira and the shogun's spies off the scent. Oishi pretends to do what Kira had hoped he would, and he gives up. He even pretends to let his life slide and goes to geisha houses where he gets drunk. So the Rōnin under oath started drinking and in sort of dissolute life, which is clever, very clever, cause they weren't those kind of people to start with. Complete change of character, and sure enough, Kira's spies report faithfully that Oishi appears to be a broken man. Gradually, Kira and his agents come to believe that Oishi is finished, and his men have music dispersed. With Kira's suspicions allayed, Oishi has another problem: how to physically get his men from Ako to the capital without being seen. It seems an almost impossible task, so in a classic maneuver of special forces deception, he instructs his men to go undercover and live ordinary lives as sleepers. They all disappeared. They scattered to the winds. Music secretly. More than 2 years pass, and gradually the court at Edo forgets the dreadful business of Asano Naganori as the winter of 1703 closes in and the nights darken. Oishi senses that his plan is ready. The word goes out to the scattered sleeper units to make their way to Edo. In secret, it's time to kill Kira. As if on the eve of a mighty battle, each man dresses with a meticulous care and ritual precision for samurai going into battle for his lord, and at the heart of the Rōnin's preparations is the sword, a weapon of devastating ferocity, and samurai are the only class in Japanese society allowed to carry them over centuries of development. The sword of the samurai, or bushi, has become sharpened to a pinnacle of perfection, unmatched anywhere. The Japanese sword is one of the wonders of the world. It's the best metal work that has ever been made at any time in history. Anywhere, the Japanese sword is the life of the bushi. That was his status, his culture, and his life and his power, because throughout Japanese history the bushi and the sword has had complete control over the country. Using techniques unknown outside Japan, swordsmiths combine razor sharpness with near indestructible toughness. They take the concept of the sword to another level. Swords are designed to be made out of composite ingots of steel, so you have very hard steel for the edge, softer iron for the core, a medium hard steel for the sights and the back, and those different ingots of iron are all fused together, then hammered out into the whole blade, so that you get this artificially made composite steel structure. The curved shape of the samurai sword ensures every blow automatically incorporates a slicing action that dramatically ramps up its destructive power. It's a wonder of the samurai's world, a unique part of his armory, and Central to who he is when you pick up a Japanese sword. You can actually feel it, it's not just a piece of metal, it actually feels it's almost alive, and you can feel the energy that's gone into making it, the skill, the design, the shape. The sword is a weapon, it's an absolutely lethal weapon, but it's a masterpiece of technology and art, but it's not just the technology that makes the sword such a powerful part of the samurai identity. Caring for it and ensuring its optimum effectiveness through constant sharpening and polishing is central to samurai training. It isn't so much a weapon as a way of martial life. Japanese swords required a certain degree of care in order to remain particularly sharp. Polishing your sword, or keeping it always very sharp, is very similar to the type of physical and mental training that as a samurai you have to go through in order to achieve the stillness of the mind and the maximum strength of your body. But Oishi knows that even the finest sword will not protect his men against the forces of the state at Edo. He's going to need the biggest armory he can muster, and for that he digs deep into the past of the samurai battle and the nitty-gritty of battle. They were far more likely to use spears, bows and arrows, axes, anything that came to hand. The Rōnin go back to their roots and adopt long-forgotten techniques and weaponry of the medieval battlefield. They were behaving in an incredibly practical way, and they were behaving like real samurai, like people in the Middle Ages would have behaved. They were armed with odd weapons. They had spears, clubs, they had axes to smash down doors. They were incredibly practical tools as well as weapons. The Rōnin are going to need something else if they're to prevail in a full-scale assault. Traditional armor is world-class, combining lightness and flexibility with a capacity to take anything the battle can throw at it. If they can get hold of any Oishi and his men will be well served by the armor of their grandfathers. It's mainly made up of steel with a silk braiding holding it all together, and then it's covered in lacquer to protect it from the elements. It makes it a very mobile armor. You've got great dexterity, and so the speed of movement isn't limited. The arm on the outside is excellent, but on the inside is very vulnerable, and the same with the areas around the lower part of the body. Now the strong do the body part is excellent, and also of course it's designed in such a way that you still got plenty of movement left and right and forward and backwards. It's a fantastic balancing act. You got protection on one side and mobility on the other, but when choosing their armor, the Rōnin have a problem. After years of peace, few have any, and buying new armor, even if they can afford it, will be a major security giveaway. So many of the Rōnin have to improvise. Their armor was made out of bits and pieces of scraps that they found of firemen's helmets, and kind of rags and bits of leather stuck together. Why do they do that? Because if you walk into the armor shop and say, "I'd like 47 suits of samurai armor, please," it's going to set off a flag. Someone's going to be worried about music. That the Rōnin have done everything they can to prepare for battle. A band of fighters, the kind of which Japan has never seen, and a mission unlike any other. And then Oishi has a breakthrough. His own intelligence sources have managed to get detailed information about Kira's house. They knew where his house was. They'd spied out the land. They knew the layout of the building. And then there's another problem. Before Oishi's men can get anywhere near Kira's house, they have to penetrate a huge and heavily defended perimeter wall. A Japanese house like that has a very strong wall, and quite a high wall. You're talking about heavy-duty defenses. It's not like a modern house, no windows, no glass windows, so it is a mini castle, and even if they can get over the wall, the Rōnin will not have the advantage of a surprise attack for very long. Moving through Kira's house undetected will be nearly impossible. The samurai house is designed to detect intruders. They didn't have electronic burglar alarms, but they had other ways of detect intruders. The floor, or the way the mats, the tatami mats, are laid out in the house is designed to detect footsteps. And then there's another problem. The house is full of secret hiding places to buy time for Kira to make good his escape. It makes a quick operation all the harder for Oishi's men, and time is critical because nearby is a massive garrison of the Shogun's army. Any delay and the Rōnin will be wiped out very quickly, and Kira has his own security force permanently stationed inside the house compound as well. Once inside Kira's house, the Rōnin will have minutes to find, seize, and execute Kira before backup troops arrive. It's all starting to look like a long shot at best. The time for waiting is over. The 47 Rōnin must go. Music, and they've waited 2 years to do it. It's a perfect black op. They go, and at night it's snowy. It's raining now. It's a race against time. Oishi knows that as he closes in on his target, the shogun's army will be summoned against him, and his tiny band of men. The chances of being killed before they get to Kira are extremely high. Oishi now orders his men into action. Units steal forward through back streets and undergrowth, getting into position to take the compound to stop neighbors raising the alarm when the attack starts. 2 units announce that the Rōnin are on official business, and amazingly it works. When they started the attack on the compound, some of the Rōnin's job was to knock on the neighbors' doors and say, "Don't panic, nothing to worry about, go back to bed, it's just a vendetta," because vendettas are actually legal, but there's a very strict set of regulations. What they wanted the neighbors to do was to say, "Oh, okay, the shogun approves, we'll go back to bed." Oishi's next challenge is to get his men into the compound in a double strategy and attack. Force scales the walls of the perimeter, while a second unit takes the guards of the gates. They had people climb over the walls. There would have been guards inside, and there was a fight in the courtyard with the guards. The Rōnin who scaled the walls now must open the gates, but the guards refuse to hand over the keys. It's all adding time and attracting attention. The attack is already losing vital momentum. There's only one option: the locks need to be smashed. The whole force of Rōnin inside the compound, Kira's own soldiers, now must be immobilized and locked down in their barracks. They go in with these iron clamps that they shove on the doors to keep the soldiers in the barracks, so they have neutralized a huge chunk of Kira's soldiers. Now the Rōnin need to take the house inside. Kira is asleep along with his household. Only speed, ruthlessness, and stealth will get the attackers through. Kira's personal bodyguards will fight with all their might to repel the attackers. Applause. While Kira scrambles to escape, the Rōnin start a frantic surge, spreading through the massive complex, knowing that at any minute the might of the Japanese National Army might be summoned against them. Japanese house has very little furniture. Everything is stored in cupboards with sliding doors, so they would have had to fight their way through the house and open all the cupboards to see where he was. Music. Hiding with time nearly up, the Rōnin seem to have lost the target. In a desperate measure, a of attackers is sent to check out one last possible hiding place. They didn't find him, so then they had to go outside and look around in the gardens, and it's in the gardens that Kira is found and sees the moment that Oishi and his Rōnin have waited for 2 long years has arrived. Kira is given the option to take the honorable way out and commit Zuku, but he's too cowardly and must die a shameful death. Music. But simply killing Kira is not enough. They have to prove and account for the kill, and once again Oishi turns to time-honored samurai convention. The samurai are a cult of headhunters. They get rewarded for the types of head they bring back, the position and prestige of the head, or the amount of heads. Their entire honor system is based on the quality of the decapitated head that they come home with, and according to the samurai code there is only one person who can reward them, their master Asano. If you want to talk about getting medieval, that's exactly what the 47 Rōnin did. They walked for 5 miles to leave his head on Aso's tomb. That is an incredible samurai thing too. Music. Do now the Rōnin have restored the honor of their master and walked the way of the true samurai as no one has for nearly 100 years. They have no place in the realm of the living and are resigned to meet Asano in death. They turn themselves into the authorities, and within days all are dead by Sako. These men had kept their martial skills alive for 100 years when they didn't really need them for battle. They weren't corrupted by court life, and they were probably really rough countrymen who just would not take that sort of treatment and insult, and they stood up to applause. It as Edo reels from the extraordinary attack, the 47 Rōnin become instant celebrities, even if the repressive regime of the shogun forbids open discussion of the terrible events today. Lord Oishi and his followers are still celebrated as symbols of ultimate loyalty, and are honored as heroes in Japan.